Roosevelt. I was there when I was a part of that piece when you talk about the team center. But I also
Family support center.
in Roosevelt, where we came in to provide services. But after 25 years, my job was also taken because of the cuts that was made to the Nassau County Youth Home, working with family and children for 25 years. So how can we continue the services if the very programs that you're talking about bringing into the schools have now been decimated, ripped out? There's no one there to provide those services, even in Roosevelt now. And as it relates to the pocket of violence, if you look at the amount of shootings that have occurred in Nassau County alone since 8/5 to present, meaning this Sunday, August 5th, after the ceremony that you attended and you saw the many names, on 8/5 we started to experience a rash of crimes up till this Sunday. All of that's tied together as far as health, mental health. But if you're decimating programs and you're cutting programs the way it was done, and I was a victim of that after 25 years, how would you answer restoring that and bring the community?
Okay, but you're not suggesting that I decimated the programs, right?
Whomever in the county
Well, I
government,
just want to make that clear that I never cut those programs.
The legislative body, these things are all tied together. When you don't have programs and services,
No, I agree with
don't
you.
have people to provide these services, then communities go
75% of the
unserviced.
people in jail have a drug, alcohol, or mental health problem. And that's where problems emerge. And this administration has cut youth programs and mental health programs and drug and alcohol programs. I would not do that, and I don't believe in doing that.
So how would you restore and tie these two together? Because it's now a health issue in our communities.
We'd have to find the money in the budget somewhere, because I've made that commitment. And I think that using the red light camera money as a dedicated fund within the first year of my administration would be one of the ways to do that. And again, I want to point out that I faced serious financial problems from the first day I came into office in 2002. Nassau County had been rated the worst run county in America. Its bond rating had been lowered to one step above junk bond status. It was on the brink of bankruptcy, and a state control board was in place. I had gotten a lot of fights with the Nassau County Police Union. I got in a lot of fights with the politicians in Albany. I got in a lot of fights to try and cap the growth of Medicaid. I got in a lot of fights with a lot of different people solely for the purpose of trying to reduce costs in other places so I can maintain the health and human services in Nassau County. And so I could do the no loan door program. So again, there's a lot of different things I've been hearing over time, but I've got a very good record when it comes to health and human services in Nassau County. And I'll challenge anybody who says I don't.
Well, my question is, what will you do to stop the IDA granted pilots for private owners of apartment buildings? One of the other things that you did do was grant more pilots to apartment building owners in Hempstead, including the longest in New York State history of 30 years. I'm very impressed with your knowledge about what goes on in classrooms, but I think it's important that you consider that one of the leading reasons that our school systems in the corridor suffer so greatly is because of government policies like the pilots that concentrate poor people of color in the corridor. This is not a natural or organic population. This is one that has been directed here by policies that you not only supported but accelerated. And as a result, in Hempstead, for instance, we make up $22 million at the village and school level for IDA granted pilots at the county and town level. We do know that the leading indicator of high-risk schools is poverty. We also know that every time we increase our tax rate, we increase our poverty rate. So in that regard, one of the areas that has been and will be in your purview if you win is this incredible transfer of wealth from the corridor, which is impoverished, to wealthy regional partners that make political contributions. And we'd like to know, will you stop that? Will you redirect IDA policy so that it will be discontinued? And what will you do to get your neighbors and supporters to support fair housing across the region and make up the lost wealth to those of us who weren't poor when we bought homes here, but have been made poorer by IDA pilots that you support?
So there's like 50 different things that you talked
Well,
about
no, we just
there.
want, will you stop it and how will you correct it?
Well, as far as IDA pilots,
For apartment buildings,
okay, so there were only a couple occasions that we did that. I think one was on Terrace Avenue. That was really a blighted, horrible situation that needed to be invested in to clean up the area.
but,
And it's a big dramatic improvement from what it was before.
but it
Now, I
also
understand-
passed $12 million onto local Hempstead Village and school residents, which you were fully aware of when you did it.
Yes,
That's significant.
yeah. I think that, you know,
You
we
made a
have to
mistake?
look about, no, I'm not gonna say I made
Oh,
a mistake,
well.
because that property is a blighted, awful, drug-infested,
As it is
crime-ridden
still.
area. And
Have
it's-
you seen it?
No, but I've discussed it with,
I'm sorry.
I've discussed it with the mayor and with the district attorney, and they said there's still problems there, but it's a lot better than it was in those days. And, more needs to be done, and I don't expect you to be satisfied with what's been done, and nobody should be satisfied, a lot of work needs to be done. But I don't regret that particular decision, and there was a lot of contention about it, and it was debated by a lot of people, and I'm sure you were part of the debate at the time, and the decision was made, and I have to live with that. I don't think that the county the county IDA should be sponsoring pilots in communities where the elected officials in the community don't want the pilot. I just said that last night to all the Village Officials Association. So if the village doesn't want a pilot in a particular community, then we shouldn't do it. And so, or I should say, if the elected officials representing the community don't want it, we shouldn't do it. And I'll make that commitment, that if the elected officials don't want a pilot in a particular community, that we shouldn't do it. And I know very well that we shouldn't be concentrating any more poverty in the corridor. We shouldn't be trying to build affordable housing in the corridor. There's more than enough affordable housing in the corridor.
3,000 units.
There's more than enough affordable housing in the city of Glen Cove, where I'm from, where we have one of the largest Section 8 programs and one of the largest housing authorities, as well as the most two-family houses in all of Nassau County. So there's certain places that you can't continue to build more affordable housing. You shouldn't. But there's not any more housing being built at all in Nassau County, because we're not growing at all. And that's why we need to grow in our downtown areas throughout Nassau County. There's no growth. You're looking at me confused. There's no.
Have you been to Hempstead? We have 5 complexes going up right now.
No, going up. They're gonna go up, yes.
No, they're going up as we speak. They're up right now.
You're talking about the Trammell Crow one?
I'm talking
That's not
about the
affordable
one on
housing.
the brownfield on South Franklin where Felders Flores was, the one on
Jackson.
Cathedral,
Jackson.
Hilton and Jackson, the one that just finished by the red light district, the one going up behind Burger King,
Maternity Street.
and the one, right. So you didn't know that?
No, I know about 2 of them, not 5 of them. And quite frankly, the growth should be taken in the downtown only, in the downtown by the train station. That's where growth should be taking place. It should be spread out all amongst the different places. But the only way we're gonna build more affordable housing in Nassau County is by having growth in our downtowns, by our train stations. And I think that we should be doing 80-20 projects in different communities throughout the county, near the train stations, in places like Hicksville and Farmingdale and Lynbrook.
80-20 meaning what?
80% market rate, 20% affordable. So that you don't just create, another pocket of just all people and affordable housing. You try and mix them together in the same locations.
Well, we don't get
And
that.
try and do it in communities throughout the county. And much like the competition that I talked about earlier with school districts, where we picked one place in 2014 and 2 places in 2015 and 3 places in 2016 and 4 places in 2017, so we get to 10 school districts, we should do the same thing with 10 downtowns in the county, where villages and towns compete to get the attention of the county, to bring the resources, to try and create the economic development in the downtowns where people want it to happen, where people want to see it happen, not where the county says it should happen, but where the villages or the towns want to see it happen.
Just as in the interest of time, we only have 8 minutes left, so I just want to let everybody know.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
I'm gonna, if I can, I'll tag team with Dennis on this question. One of the things that I think has been raised to you in the past is where young people or any person that's been abused or misused by the police force goes when they need to complain about the police in Nassau County. Currently, the only 2 places are the Internal Affairs Unit, who has a 95% unsubstantiated record of every complaint made by a civilian against a police officer, 95% or greater. And the district attorney's office, if they decide that there was something unlawful done, not if there was any violation of a civil right. So with regard to that, and then Dennis is going to pick up on the community policing issue, what are your views on a civilian complaint review board in Nassau County? And Dennis, you want to take the second part?
The other part is, with the closing of the police precincts, your thought on those, and also the community policing, getting back to putting officers back on the street in beats, to cover our neighborhoods in the corridor. We wanna know if you have any plans to maybe start that over there.
As far as the civilian complaint board, I'm not prepared to say that I would commit to it or what the structure would be. I'd have to look at it, but I think that there does need to be something to give people a voice to make complaints that's more direct than currently exists regarding abuse in the police department. I don't think that, and you may have a different view, and I've heard that people do have a different view. But I used to think the police department was one of the best police departments anywhere, and we didn't have the complaints like you had in the city from this police department. But over the past 3.5 years, you've seen more and more complaints about this police department, and scandals and tragedies happen than you've seen in the history of the county in a very short period of time. A lot of it has to do with the staffing that exists. So I think that the staffing of the county police force is nonsensical right now because the headcount savings that they've achieved have been far outweighed by the dramatic increase in overtime. It went from $30 million a year when I left office, or in the 30s, to now in the 60s as far as the amount of overtime. So any headcount savings they got, they have increased overtime. And with that comes lack of training, lack of supervision, and lack of special task force to work on problems that exist. So I will completely reevaluate the police department and the size of staffing and look to increase it in a way that makes economic sense, but also makes good policing sense. And there was another issue that was important in that.
Community policing.
Community policing, trying to get.
No, there was something else you said, community policing.
Precinct.
Precinct, and the 5th precinct. I've committed to reopen the 5th precinct.
Yeah, thanks. Trina, do you have a question?
I want to make that clear. I will reopen the 5th precinct.
Yes, thank you.